Did you know that before the pandemic, only 20% of workers were working from home? And now that number has skyrocketed to over 50%. It's safe to say that the pandemic has changed the way we work forever. And with that, the traditional 9-to-5 workday may be on its way out.
Of the 20, about 10 said they're going back to the office, return to the office. But upon probing what return to the office really means, it turns out that means 2 or 3 days a week. One thing we know is that this 9-to-5 that we used to see is never going to return.
Let's face it, the old way of working just needed to be fixed for most people. According to recent studies, only 15% of workers are happy with their jobs. So, in this video, we'll explore how the pandemic has forced us to rethink work and whether the end of the 9-to-5 workday is a good thing or a bad thing for the future of work. So get ready to discover how the pandemic has changed the way we work and what that means for the future of work. The pandemic has created flexibility in people's work lives that they hadn't experienced before. A report by Adobe shows that workers want more control over their work schedule, and half of the enterprises and small business leaders work longer hours now than they did before COVID-19. The average work week has increased to 45 hours. Employers who didn't adapt to this trend risk losing top talent. The interest in this flexibility also varies by generation. Among millennials, 73% said they would switch jobs for more control over their work schedule. Employers are trying various ways to offer relief to their employees, such as increased empathy among managers and better navigation of the work-life balance. Other companies are exploring a 4-day work week to notable success. The momentum behind remote work, shortened work weeks, corporate accountability, and equitable workplaces has never been stronger, and it cannot be overstated how much loss will play into how people will view work and their livelihoods as COVID evolves. One of the biggest shifts at work is toward flexible schedules. For years, commuting to an office and working a 9-to-5 day has left little time for anything else. Still, having tasted the freedom of a flexible schedule, many employees aren't excited about returning to the old working methods. According to a report by Adobe entitled "The Future of Time," 51% of workers now want complete flexibility in their working hours. This number has jumped from 17% pre-COVID to 51% today. The survey spoke with workers in 7 countries: the UK, US, Australia, New Zealand, France, Germany, and Japan. The Germans were the most eager to adopt a flexible work schedule, with 56% of respondents in that country supporting the idea of flexible hours. On the other hand, Japan has the lowest number of people currently experiencing a flexible hour lifestyle, with just 12% having that option now. Employers must address these challenges or risk losing top talent. Different countries and generations have different attitudes toward flexible schedules. Millennials are the most open to change, followed by Gen Z and Gen X. Employee burnout is a growing problem, particularly after the pandemic, and employers are trying to offer relief in various ways. At the core of this movement is the growing burnout employees face as overwhelming stress from economic uncertainty, work responsibilities, inflation, and more press down on workers. Employers are trying a variety of ways to offer relief. Some companies are exploring a 4-day work week, with Microsoft and the UK having tested pilot programs. Microsoft in 2019 trialed a program in Japan giving workers the same salary but only requiring them to work 4 days, and productivity increased by nearly 40%.
That seems to be gaining quite a lot of traction in various parts of this continent, this idea of a 4-day work week that I mentioned before.
In the UK, a 6-month pilot of a 4-day work week is underway. That study follows a multi-year trial in Iceland from 2015 to 2019 that found workers were happier, healthier, and more productive with a 4-day week versus a 5-day one.
Now, two large-scale trials have already taken place in Iceland in recent years, covering about 1% of the population. More trials are being discussed or prepared within the EU's member states, including in Spain, Finland, Belgium, and Germany.
The momentum behind remote work, shortened work weeks, corporate accountability, and equitable workplaces has never been stronger. For many people, 2 years of living and working through the pandemic have changed their relationship with work. The coronavirus pandemic changed how we work, and the interest in flexibility also varied significantly by generation. As the pandemic forced people to stay home and work remotely, many employees have developed shifting attitudes towards work.
The pandemic pushed companies worldwide into an unplanned experiment of remote working to keep businesses going after strict safety measures were imposed. Now that employees realize that working from home is possible, many are reluctant to go back to the office, or at least not full time. Around 1/4 of workers globally would quit or start looking for another job if they were told to return to the workplace 5 days a week. That's according to a survey by a group of economists.
Abigail Lev, a clinical psychologist based in San Francisco, has seen the shifts through each stage of COVID. At first, people were afraid to lose their jobs. But then, while working from home, people saw the upsides of having control over their days and not having to commute or face office politics. Employers need to address these challenges or risk losing top talent. The interest in this flexibility also varied greatly by generation. Among millennials, 73% said they would switch jobs for more control over their work schedule, assuming the salary and job description remained the same. That compared to just 46% of baby boomers. Gen Z was the second most likely to change, with 66% saying they would switch jobs for more control. Gen X came in at 59% who would change. The pandemic has changed not only the way people work, but also the relationship with work itself. For many people, work has been a way to define their identity. Still, the pandemic has led to layoffs and job insecurity, causing people to feel like they are losing their identity. This loss of identity has caused people to seek meaning in their work beyond just a sense of identity. When the power swung in the opposite direction, people took better opportunities in the Great Resignation. People are suddenly being faced with the fragility of life. A boss might ask, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" But maybe we don't have 5 years guaranteed to plan for. As the U.S. enters year 3 of working through the pandemic, people channel their internal reflections and shape them into a new way of working and finding meaning in work. Have you ever had a bad boss? You know, the kind of boss who makes your workday miserable and stressful and leaves you feeling undervalued and disrespected. Well, you're not alone. According to a recent survey by Pew Research Center, feeling disrespected at work was a top reason Americans quit their jobs. But the pandemic has shifted the power dynamic between employers and employees. As more workers reevaluate their priorities and reconsider how they want to work, they increasingly say no to bad bosses. In fact, throughout the Great Resignation, many organizations have been forced to raise wages and improve retention efforts. But as HR expert Stacy Lev points out, companies must recognize that another point of friction causing employees to quit is company leadership. Lev says the traditional workplaces that reward psychopathic traits in leaders, such as seeking recognition, being self-centered, and having a high sense of entitlement, are no longer acceptable to workers. People are sick and tired of trying to please these types of people and don't want to engage in these dynamics anymore. Others are taking it further and redefining their outlook on work entirely by becoming their own boss. In fact, Americans filed 5 million small business applications in 2022, a little less than in 2021, having 5.4 million. This shift towards self-employment clearly indicates that workers want more control over their work lives and are no longer willing to put up with bad bosses. The traditional office-based work model is evolving rapidly, with remote work and flexible schedules becoming more common. This shift has advantages and challenges, as we've seen, but it's clear that the future of work will be very different from what we've been used to. Both employers and employees need to adapt to these changes and find ways to work effectively in this new environment. Whether creating a dedicated workspace at home or establishing clear communication channels with your team, we all have a role in making this transition as smooth as possible. So I want you to think about how you can adapt to the changing nature of work. How can you make the most of the opportunities that remote work and flexible schedules offer? What skills do you need to develop to succeed in this new environment? Take action and see where it leads you. Now we want to hear from you. How has the pandemic changed the way you work? Have you had to adapt to new working conditions or adopt new skills? What are your thoughts on the future of work? Let us know in the comments below. And if you have any other thoughts or questions about work, career, or productivity, feel free to share them. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.